Welcome, everyone. This is Eric L. Dunavant, the Mindset Disruption Strategist. We're here with another episode of Redefining Success. And joining me today is Matt Davis, the CEO of Davis Business Law. We've been visiting a little bit early here, and I'm more intrigued. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of a preview right now. He wrote a book called The Art of Preventing Stupid. And we're going to talk about a lot of other things, but with a title like that, there have to be some stories and some experiences that are sitting in the background. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. So Matt, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's a great day. So as I mentioned, I turned 54 today, so I'm having a big time.
That is. I was trying to decide whether or not to mention that, because by the time we get here, you may be about a month and a half removed from 54, but happy birthday.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday. As I told you when we start, it's I've got the grill running in my backyard. It's a Saturday afternoon barbecue. I did put some andouille sausage on specifically for your birthday.
Thank you.
I got the hot dogs and burgers and everything running. Would you introduce yourself to all my friends I've invited over to the barbecue, please?
Yeah. Well, I'm Matt Davis, and I run Davis Business Law. We're a fast-growing small business law firm. That's what we do. We just help small business owners, as we say, deal with their vulnerabilities so they can capitalize on their opportunities. Nice little canned phrase there.
Yeah.
We've got branches right now from Kansas City down to Dallas and kind of in between. And I run it out of my hometown, which is Enid, Oklahoma. And it's just a small, overgrown prairie town, but we like it here.
Yeah.
And I've got 5 kids and just a busy life. And we learned yesterday, we made the Inc. 5000 list again.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Yeah, pretty happy about that. It's cool to get those. It makes the team happy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How many team members do you have?
24 right now.
Wow.
And we're about to go on a hiring spree. We've been just treading water. We've been on a really fast growth trajectory, and maybe today we're going to pay off our last debt, which is a beautiful thing.
That's an incredible birthday present right there.
Yeah, that's pretty nice.
Yeah. The cash flow looks a little different,
Yeah, it does. And we're just going to reinvest it back in. And so it's all good. It's been really fun.
Well, so tell me this, what if someone were to ask you this question, what are you most passionate about right now?
I'm having a lot of fun growing the law firm. And I'm really passionate about, we're getting to a size that I can really implement what I wanted to do with this company. Because 7 years ago, 7 years ago, I was just practicing law out of my house. And I've got this passion about, and let me back up. My mom was the only woman in her med school class. Wow. Back in the 60s. And she was just tough as nails and, grew up here in our hometown, and then ultimately went to St. Louis and did a residency there. And this is shocking to a lot of people now. They wouldn't let her do a residency at Oklahoma because they were afraid she might get pregnant. And so she had to go to Barnes in St. Louis, and ultimately came back here, practiced medicine, raised my brother and me with my dad. And she was one of the pioneers in breast cancer screening. Okay. So 26 years ago, my wife and I met in the middle. I was in DC, she was in LA, came back here to Enid. And, it's been a real privilege to, practice law with all these families that I've known forever. Yeah. But I can't tell you how many people come up to me over the course of my adult life and said, "Hey, your mom saved my life," or saved my mom's life, or my wife's, or what, and it was because of her, of the breast screening. And that, it still kind of gets me, because it's like, as a professional, we we know what can go wrong. Like, you know what can go wrong in your trade.
Yeah.
Okay. But as a professional in law, lawyers aren't trained to help business people or people in general get ahead of their problems. They're just taught to deal with the case once it happens.
Yeah.
And so we have been building systems, and the first tip of the iceberg is the art of preventing stupid. That's the business immune system report. And what that works through is, you're familiar with SWOT analysis.
Yeah,
totally. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I think the threats part is ridiculous. It's like you're asking questions to the universe. What could possibly go wrong? What are our threats? Those are lame questions. They're just, they don't have any structure to them. And what we have learned is, if we actually ask smart questions and do structured brainstorming around what can go wrong with the management, what can go wrong with the production, what can go wrong with our facilities or plant, what can go wrong in our marketing. Because we've looked at because as lawyers, we're the ones that deal with the problems when they really become problems, right?
Yep.
And so if we take that, just like my mom took cancer, and said, okay, how do we get in front of that? And if we use a systematic way of brainstorming what the threats to the business are, then we can actually deal with them and help businesses stay out of trouble, help families build their dreams. And that's what I'm passionate about, because it's really fun to help take companies and do that. We've got one right now we're working with that these guys discovered a bunch of lithium up in Arkansas. And it's a pretty cool deal.
Yeah.
And we've been with them since the inception. And that's going to be a big deal. And we've worked through all of our systems with these guys, and it's a life-changing deal for the owners of the company and, for generations.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you said this, you said it kind of subtly. I hope you didn't mean it subtly, because I hope no one didn't miss this. I mean, so 7 years ago, you're practicing out of your house. Is that what you said? I mean, so you've got all these offices nationwide now. You're in your home 7 years ago. Yeah,
I'm in my home. And I tell people, I'm kind of joking and not, that I had a midlife crisis. And I just said, I stumbled on a group called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And it was just a business coaching group. And they said to me, hey, Davis, I was engaged with them at that point. They said, hey, you know as much about small business as anybody we work with across America. Why don't you start a business law firm? And I said, okay. And next thing, I went out and I bought this building we're in, which is an old house. And I called my old paralegal, who's assistant manager at the bank. Here we are. She's right over here.
Yeah.
She's they call her my adult supervisor. So anyway, we just took off and started growing. And part of our growth is because we take good care of our clients. Sure. And we're pretty good marketers. And we also figured out what small business needs in attorneys. And most law firms, they just go around collecting attorneys with a bar card and a pulse, and then they're run like fraternities. And they're just kind of run by committee. Yeah. And we run very aggressively and very decidedly and very strategically, and it makes a difference. And we think it delivers a better product and a better service to our clients. So our repeat business is we think pretty remarkable. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that you described, which I work with a lot of attorneys and I don't run across this often. I mean, most attorneys that I run into are, dare I say, order takers, meaning I come to you and I tell you, kind of help me, you can maybe help me navigate the menu
but most of the time I'm bringing the problem or the idea. And what I love about what you've described is it sounds like you're being a lot more proactive on the work that you're doing and saying, hey, I'm looking at what you're doing and you can't even see this. And here's some of the things that I see.
Yeah. And we do it in a very systematic way with, with the art of preventing stupid, again, is about the business immune system report, which is really just one of the two main ways we'll do structured brainstorming.
Yep.
And ultimately we end up going through a process of them prioritizing and come up with a strong protected business plan. And that's my next book is called The Strong Protected Business. We've been a little distracted with growth to publish it.
Yeah.
But we'll do that here shortly. And the plan really has three parts. And it's nothing completely novel. It's number one, let's figure out what the easy list of the threats are.
Yep.
Let's deal with them. I mean, just get them done, even if they're not. When you talk about prioritization, we talk about likelihood and seriousness, kind of like the Eisenhower matrix, but a little different.
Yep.
And then let's get the easy list done. Let's figure out what the habits are of the business that need to either get implemented or stopped. And then we've got rocks, which is a Stephen Covey term. And so ultimately, we like to work with business coaches and help instruct them from a negative standpoint of the threats so that they can do the job looking at the opportunities and the strengths. And we think that we have a very great expertise in that in the law business, people don't do.
Right. No, that's what I hear. I mean, so this is what would be interesting is there a connection? I mean, you started out talking about your mom and the breast cancer like detection that she pioneered, and it's almost like you're taking that legacy and applying it to small business law.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing. I mean, I took that ethic of, she didn't pioneer all the screening, but she was one of the pioneers of being really intense about going, hey, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
We're going to be proactive in how we take care of our patients. And, medicine has gotten a lot better about that. Law hasn't. And that's something that we bring to the table. And it's something I'm really passionate about pushing, because now that we're big enough and I'm not down in the trenches, I'm like, okay, guys, this is Davis Business Law 3.0.
I love that. So let's take it from 7 years ago. You're working with a coaching group. You have an idea to where you are multiple offices, and you really have solidified this business immune system report. You wrote the book. You've got to take me on a little bit of the journey of maybe some of the struggles and obstacles in the way of, I've got this vision. I know what I'm called to do. I know what I want to do. And, you have starts and stops along the way to get to maybe even where we are today, or even just kind of some of the mile markers along the way.
Oh, wow. As just a back, the baseline there is I always go back to Harvey McKay's book. What was it? Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive. Yeah. And his great line in there is, I can't believe how stupid I was 2 weeks ago. Right. And, the journey of building a business is the most humbling enterprise, because look, at the end of the day, I'm no dummy. I've got a lot of business experience. I've got a lot of legal experience, but every day I'm coming in here going, I can't believe we didn't get that. And by the way, I was with my uncle in Dallas 2 weeks ago, and he is just fantastic business guy. He's 80 years old, still building huge apartment complex. Yale undergrad, Harvard B school guy, and a great influence in my life. And he's like, isn't it funny how many guys that in business that are really successful, that are really humble and are really just so approachable? I said, yeah, because they understand that it's all this, you're just learning along the way. And that's exactly it. And he was telling me about somebody. I mean, we had lunch with Boone Pickens a couple of years ago. Boone was that way. And, I said, yeah, John, Harold Hamm, who's from our hometown, and some people know who Harold is. He's worth either 10 or 20 billion, depending on the price of oil.
Yeah.
And he's just common as an old shoe. That's the broad brush. So, the steps have been, let's figure out how we can go to Oklahoma City, because we're 85 miles out of Oklahoma City. Let's go set up a branch in Oklahoma City. And we just said, okay, we're going to start acting and thinking like we're a multi-state, multi-office firm. Let's go to Oklahoma City. So I got a little office down there, and I put the desks together.
Yeah.
I bought the chairs, and I went over to Target. I bought the cups, and I still see those cups in our, 6-person Oklahoma City office. And I'm like, that's where we started. And next thing I know, we're growing in Oklahoma City, and it just starts snowballing, and we're still working with the same clients we started with. And then I just said, okay, let's go to Tulsa and Wichita, which are both 100 miles from here. And next thing I know, we're growing in those cities. And then, we started doing that. And, one of the things we talk about, this is maybe interesting, is the companies that deal with their vulnerabilities are the ones that get the opportunities, because they're the strongest players on the field. And right in the middle of all that, we had a corporate client, really the only corporate client we have, a big national company. And I had made a trip down to Fort Worth to meet with the regional vice president, did it on my own accord. And I said, hey, your litigation program is kind of dumb. And Jamie and I mapped out, here's what really, here's the cases that you're getting involved in, and here's some ideas. And I was just put all the cards on the table with them. And what I was doing, I was actually getting ahead of the problem, of the ongoing problem, and saying, guys, here. And for us, that was also us protecting, because back then they were 30 or 40% of our business. And by the way, that's a vulnerability,
Yeah.
when you have one client that big. And incidentally, that was one of the reasons I went out and started the law firm, because I was got 5 kids. I'm the sole breadwinner. And I'm like, I got all my eggs in that basket, or at least 40% of them. And I didn't have a marketing strategy or anything. I mean, I very sophisticated. Didn't have a website, didn't have my name in the phone book, and people just found me because I had a good reputation and I was very busy.
Yeah.
But anyway, I went and I dealt with that vulnerability by protecting the client, getting ahead of it. And next thing I know, I got a call from back east, and their general counsel said, hey, Matt, you've got 2 branches right now. Would you like 45?
What?
And, yeah. And I said, sure. And Jamie goes,
right?
Just like, what did you just say? And ultimately we had to go down to San Antonio and meet with them. And Jamie put together how to manage the forms, most of the forms, to manage their national litigation program. And they said, when I was there, I didn't have the job yet, all the branches, and they go, well, can we have these? I said, well, yeah, sure, because I'm either getting it or not. Yeah. And if I don't get it, they're no use to me. So, and we ended up getting it. And that's, we were talking before, that's how we're doing work down in Louisiana. I've got an attorney down there. And, but I guess and figuring out how to manage that has been a real challenge. In fact, that's probably why we haven't published the second book. But the point of that is, again, we were taking care of our clients. We were and dealing with our own vulnerabilities. And that made us the strongest player on the field because, 40 other law firms just lost their accounts.
Mm.
And we picked it up. And so that was a milestone, and it's taken a while to figure out and run efficiently. And then we just kept expanding and got into Kansas City. And I'll tell you, I don't know if you've ever read Greg Crabtree's books about simple numbers. Greg Crabtree's, he's a pretty prominent Entrepreneurs Organization member.
Okay.
And he's a friend of mine now, and I'm a big fanboy of him. And I get to go to lunch with him about once a quarter.
Oh, fantastic.
He's out of Huntsville, but he's in Oklahoma City a lot, so I just go down.
Yeah.
And we went through what he calls the Badlands, which is that stretch from about $2 to $3.5 million, where you have to add all this non-revenue staff.
Yep.
Had to hire a CFO, which ultimately ended up with Tricia, who was a receptionist at the law firm I used to work at. And I told her 20 years ago she was too smart to be answering the phones and to go do something with her life. So she kind of likes me.
Yeah.
And then Derek, who I've known forever, I don't even know where I know him from. He's from one of the little country towns down here, as if we're a big city. And he was an Air Force JAG officer. He's a full bird colonel. And so he was Air Force attorney, answered to a 4-star general, was the number 2 JAG officer in Europe. And he retired, and I called him and I said, "Hey, Derek, what are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know." I said, "Why don't you come home, help me run the law firm? And you can go hang out at the ranch with your crazy dad on the weekends." He's like, "Let's do it." So, but, that was hard. That was expensive. And then, you throw COVID in on top of that, and there were some challenging years. And, again, that's why we're just paying our debt off, hopefully today.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you a question that may be a little bit different, but how do you balance growing from where you were 7 years ago in a home and in a home all the way up to the business and still keep things healthy at home and with 5 kids? And how do you maintain as much as you can growing a successful business while also keeping a successful home life? What have you found that have been maybe some of the challenges or, even blessings or opportunities or things you've discovered along that journey?
Well, you probably ought to ask my wife that question because she would have a decidedly different answer than I do. That's one of the reasons we live here, is because life's just kind of easy. It's 3 minutes home, and that makes a big difference to not have the big commute just chewing up your time. My wife will tell you that I have obsessive compulsive tendencies, which is true.
Yeah.
And not a disorder, just tendencies. And, that's not all bad in a lawyer. And I work pretty hard on what we do, and I like to work Saturday mornings. I hope I've struck some sort of balance, and I hope. I just hope. I don't have any good advice because I can't believe how stupid I was 2 weeks ago.
Well, at least you're smart enough to admit it. The person who can't learn is the person who doesn't realize how stupid they were 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
so you guys are continuing to grow. And what are you looking forward to over the next 2 to 3 years? I mean, so you've got getting the debt paid off, but still kind of looking at growth as you kind of look at the future. What are the things that continue to keep you energized about what's happening?
I look, I love having a spread out because I'll go to Dallas and spend the day with Shantasia, or go to Kansas City and spend the day with Jared. And um, and that's so fun for me. And we've just picked up a really great new growth client in Dallas that I'm having a lot of fun with, that I'm working with. And um, we're going to go take over, air quotes. We're going to a couple more markets in Texas. We probably need to go get Houston, Austin, San Antonio. Okies call it San Antonio for some reason. And look at some other cities, probably Denver, Nashville, maybe Memphis. Your guys' crazy Louisiana law scares us.
I get it. Yeah, the Napoleonic system down here is so backwards.
So weird. And we're just like, oh, wow. So we do really well in fast growing cities because we'll break in using digital marketing, and then we know where we hit just a curve where things are on autopilot. So Oklahoma City's on autopilot for us. So we're just snowballing down there, and starting to in Wichita. And Tulsa's a little slower, but we'll get it under control.
So you're 54 today.
Right.
So 6 years, you turned 60. What does life look like at that birthday?
Oh, I don't think I'll change much. I mean, I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing. And my Uncle John is one of my heroes. He's 80 years old. He's still building 250 unit apartment complexes. And
of course,
still, and that's the way we are. And my people all live into their 90s. My Uncle Larry is just sold his Honda shop in Jeff City, Missouri. And his wife has passed on, and he's still blowing and going. He owns a bunch of apartment complexes, and I like doing stuff, and I really enjoy it. And I'm really happy that I was able to build the firm, because another one of my heroes was my first boss. E.B. Mitchell was his name. And he and Ed DeClerc, Mitchell DeClerc is the firm. And I got out of there after they passed on. But these were old guys, and they kind of hit a point in their career where they were having fun, basically making fun of me and being a young lawyer, teaching me things.
Yeah.
And but what we're doing is so much fun, because we get to go around. I get to go help businesses. I get to work with our lawyers, and we're real hardcore about who we let in on the team. Our recruiting, I intend to scare off all the jerks, because guess what? There's a selection bias for sociopaths in the law business. You might notice that. And my ad, when we put it out there, starts like, would you actually like to help people and use your skills? And by the way, if you're an Eeyore, don't even bother. Because most law ads, for a lawyer job, read like, "Hey, would you like to wear a gray suit and terrorize humanity?"
Right? You can't be from Enid, Oklahoma, and be about terrorizing humanity.
No, we're kind of, we're just kind of common old folk. And,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I got one other question I want to ask you, and then a couple of things I want to push back to you. But so on this growth pattern, especially over the last 7 years, if there's anything that you could go back to the person 7 years ago about what that person thought that success was going to look like, versus you sit on this side now of kind of the success that you're like, yeah, I really like what we have. What could you tell yourself 7 years ago that really would either make the ride smoother or better, or, would go a little bit, better than it did?
I have another book idea that answers that question.
Okay.
So, you remember when we were in school and they gave us all these stupid word problems,
Yeah.
right? At the end of a day, business is just a word problem.
Mm.
And it's, and so much of life is just a word problem. And, the idea of the book is let's just talk about your word problem. Where do you want to go and what's it going to take?
Yeah.
And so again, down the line of I can't believe how stupid I was yesterday. I mean, we have got these dramatic marketing metrics, but I'm just going yesterday. What really just matters is the leads because I know what our closing rates are on leads. And I'm looking through all this complex stuff of Google Analytics and this and that. And I'm just like, ultimately, the word problem is how many leads do we have?
Mm.
Because I know how many we close. Okay. And so this is really important in business. If people can just get very incisive about the word problem and figure out what their word problem is,
Yep.
and then figure out a plan how to make it work.
Mm.
And in a way, this is a little vague, but business starts with the leads. What are your opportunities?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you get your opportunities? How do you close them? How do you produce it? And it's not always an easy deal. I mean, it took us a while to figure out what sort of attorneys and what sort of skill sets we needed to plug in and make worked for our business clients. And we ultimately figured out it's kind of a Swiss Army knife attorney. I mean, if we just have a desk lawyer, they can't do the job.
Yeah.
But if you can structure your word problem and figure out what it is, I've got mine written right up here across the top of my whiteboard, which is 4x8 whiteboard. And I just look at it every day and I'm constantly refining it going, okay, and that's just because I'm constantly learning going, what can we do better? What can we do better?
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
No. Could you share with us what's on the whiteboard or is it?
Well, it's hire A-player attorneys.
Yeah.
Get them to work. And, we know how many leads we have to have for every attorney because we know what the close rate is. Get them, utilize, which is meaning make sure they're actually doing their work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sometimes a little bit of a challenge. And then make sure they're getting good time down and then collect.
Mm.
And, and it's pretty simple, but, we have, billing quotas for our attorneys that you need to have if you're going to run a company. And making sure that that's getting done and making sure that the time's getting reported well, because clients they want to see action, and they want to see a reason that you're doing something. Yeah. In your time description. Then collection is really important in our business, because law firm collections rates would shock you how low they are.
Really?
Oh yeah, they are horrible. And in the 80%, and we run north of 95%.
Wow.
And it's just because one thing we're good at is exporting data to Excel and then manipulating the data in Excel to usable format. And so I know every day where our risks are. And that's the orange report. We just color coded all of our reports so that, because then we don't have to remember the complicated names of them. Orange report, yellow is attorney productivity. Purple report is amount in trust. Green. And so, everything's.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Matt, is there anything that we didn't get to talk about today that you were hoping to share while we were together?
Well, Eric, we would have a ball. I'm going to have to come through Covington next time I'm going down to Gulf Shores. and take you out to lunch, because we could talk forever.
I
Because
think, yeah, absolutely. No, I've enjoyed it. I will ask you if you don't have anything else to share. But if people want to follow you, they want to get in touch with you, they want to kind of, I know they can probably get the book on Amazon, I'm guessing.
yeah, books on Amazon.
But if
And
people want to follow you, keep up with what's going on, what's the best way to do that?
davisbusinesslaw.com is our firm's website. And that's where to go. And by the way, a lot of our tools for dealing with the vulnerabilities are up there in the resources, and they're just freely available.
Yeah, I will tell everyone who's listening, I was on your website yesterday looking through some of that. That's powerful. I mean, just for you to have the generosity to share that, and just some of the questions you were asking, and some of the,
that's we like to be generous. I mean, the other thing is, we just, for some of the states that we operate in, we just put up all the forms and instructions for how to set up a basic LLC for two reasons. A, because why not? Two, we don't make any money doing it. And three, we're not going to pick a fight with LegalZoom. Who cares? So, they're going to beat us at that every day. So let's just put it out there.
So if you're a business owner, I'm going to highly recommend that you end up on, this is davisbusinesslaw.com, and
Yes,
go
sir.
look in you need to go look in the resources if you're a business owner, because you've got vulnerabilities you're not paying attention to. I promise you do. And this is going to kind of give you some awareness and walk you through that. So I'm going to make that plug right now. Every business owner listening,
Thank you. Yeah.
go visit your website. My last question, I told you this was coming. In 3 generations, what do you hope your great grandchildren remember about you?
That's a fun question, because again, I live in my hometown, and I still own the farms that my great grandparents and great great grandparents got in the land runs. And my great grandfather, Marcellus, he was out there breaking sod behind the butt end of a mule, and got the farms in 1893. And he and my great grandmother, I've got her rocker downstairs. Just first person I saw when I left the hospital, apparently, so I'm told. And they
54 years ago today, by the way.
Yeah, pretty much. And they they sent all the kids into town, and made them be doctors and lawyers and such, to borrow a Willie Nelson phrase.
Yep.
And there was some real wisdom passed down, because my grandpa's generation was really pretty successful, and gave a lot of people really good business advice. I mean, I was talking about Harold Hamm, and I saw Harold here a while ago, and I said, "Hey, I've got all this stuff from your first company." And he's like, "Oh yeah, your granddad was my accountant." And I was like, "Wow." I hope I leave a good legacy of family, and just wisdom, and of home. I just took Henry, who's my 19-year-old, on a 3,800-mile drive, just to kind of talk at him. My wife's like, "Why don't you fly?" Because we went to New York City to see a friend of mine who runs my firm, except it's the same firm, but he runs it on Wall Street.
Yeah.
And we're great friends. And Allison's like, "Why don't you drive?" I said, "Because I want to talk at him for 38 miles." And that was a great trip, because we used findagrave.com and just tracked all of our ancestors' graves. And I ultimately ended up at my 7th great grandfather's grave in Berks County, which is just northwest of Philadelphia. And that was pretty cool, because they were really interesting people. And that history was cool. But maybe this is it. As we got back, and we're pulling back into Oklahoma, and Henry looks at me and he goes, "Dad, I feel like we're hobbits from the Shire, just coming back after going to Mordor or whatever. I'm like, Henry, there's a little exaggeration in the Mordor, but there is something really cool about home and about that legacy. And I think a lot of my kids appreciate that because, I can be in my neighborhood and I can go see this little kid and I'm like, I knew your great grandmother.
Right.
And that's been a really cool, rich part about adulthood in your hometown.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going to be a Washington lawyer, and I just decided not to be one day.
Mm.
And literally called my girlfriend, who was a TV producer in LA, and said, "Let's go back to our hometown."
Mm.
Here we are.
There's a lot of wisdom in going back home.
Yeah, it is.
Or finding a place that can become home.
Yeah, and building that legacy and building those long-term, family friendships and John Cougar Mellencamp, he said, I was, a small town song, people let me be who I want to be. I mean, and it's fun because in a weird way, it's kind of liberating because, people know I'm just kind of weird, just kind of a nerd, but I'm kind of one of the cool nerds. So there you go.
There you go. There you go. Matt, we could go on and on. I know we could. Thank you so much for being here today, for taking your birthday and sharing it with us.
Well, my wife will tell you I'm a workaholic, so I'm working on my birthday. So.
Yeah, mine too. Not that you're a workaholic. My wife would tell you that I'm a workaholic, so I get it. Thank you for being on the show, Matt. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. I've still got some extra andouille on the grill, so make sure that if Matt doesn't eat it, you eat it as well. But thank you for being with us. We'll be with you again next time. God bless you. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Eric.